Introducing Ken from Ndau is Rob Fresca, the co-founder and managing partner of Cosmo Venture Partners. Rob, why don't you go ahead and take it away?
Hi, everybody. Thanks for the intro. It's a pleasure to introduce Ken. Ken and I actually go way back. Hey, Ken. I like your background there. So Ken and I, we met each other over at Carnegie Mellon back in 1995 when I was starting one of the first financial services on the internet. And I later sold it to Intuit. And Ken was starting an AI company out of Carnegie Mellon called WiseWire, which invented collaborative filtering and a lot of the technology behind Google AdWords using machine learning and intelligent agent software. And Ken has over 40 patents. I always say you're a polymath. You know more stuff about everything than I've ever seen. And today what he's going to talk about is Endow. You know, Ken came to me at Cosmo Ventures about 4 or 5 years ago. And he said, I'm part of this group called the Endow Collective. And we're working on this new long-term store of value. And it's all proof of stake. So Ken's got, like I said, 40 patents, been CTO of Carnegie, of Lycos, several other startups behind his back. And I'll turn it over to you, Ken.
Thank you, Rob. All right, so let's get this show on the road. Okay, so Endow is an adaptive digital currency. And this means that we've designed into its blockchain a fundamental set of monetary policy functions that allow it to adapt to be more stabilized so that it can still rise in value, but it mitigates downside volatility. And this goes back to an examination of Bitcoin. And we wanted something that was less volatile so that you could do things like staking and use crypto as a token of accountability, to have skin in the game, to be held accountable, to represent your commitment to things, and hold that value in a steady form that's protected, and not worry from day to day that it's wildly fluctuating in value and that you can't do anything about it. You need to feel like your value is in the best place it can be as much as possible. So we call this an adaptive currency or a buoyant currency. It also, Rob said, I got together with a bunch of folks about 6 years ago. We called it the Endow Collective for reasons I'll explain. But we saw, hey, this great thing, Bitcoin, was really taking off. But the reasons it seemed to be taking off were people were, speculating about potential hyperinflation. So this is a good hedge. It's a new bundle of property rights that can help you protect those rights if you properly use all the cryptography. And a few other things, but as a long-term store of value, it was not ideal. And when we were starting to think about where this whole blockchain industry could go, we thought, the staking concept is the key to where the most value is to be unlocked. And that's because, you just think about what does the public wish that were better right now? It's institutions. They've lost faith in institutions. They don't believe people are doing what they're supposed to do and acting in good faith and operating on constructive principles. And staking can solve that. And if you can do that in the digital world and solve that problem, that's what really is what makes civilization be the greatest engine of value creation since the days of Law of the Jungle. So that's what we're aiming to do with this. Now, to have a good stake, though, you've got to have this a good long-term store of value, so that when you've staked it and it's sitting there and maybe it's locked up for 3 years, you've got to have faith in it, that it's in the right place. You need reduced volatility. You need to know that it's being governed properly. You don't want some kind of governance operating that makes decisions that take things in a whole different direction than what you were expecting when you locked up your stake. It's got to be secure and have a robustness against all forms of losing your value. It's got to have a demand-driven supply as part of that, so that You don't see these giant spikes up that they're fun when they last, right? But we're all seeing what happens when Bitcoin gets ahead of itself, right? Is it can fall just as rapidly. And if you got in at the wrong time, you're not a happy camper. You want there to be incentives to be holding it. You don't want to feel like it's a giant opportunity cost to have locked it up. And you want to have an endowment of assets behind it that can help support a floor price and tend to keep it from people wondering what's going to happen if there's a giant crisis, but something that will support it. And this endowment does that of assets, which is what Endow is named for, the endowment. So as an optimized long-term store value, let me give you a little bit of the tokenomics behind it. All of the Endow began as a 30 million reserve of Endow in the endowment. All of it was sold over time according to a pre-specified bonding curve with 3 phases of 10 million each. We're still in that first phase in an early part of it. And every 1,000 Endow sold out of the endowment, it increments up a little bit according to this bonding curve. And when you hold it, you get rewarded for that. So this, we're encouraging early on people to understand the concept of locking and staking. Currently, the EAI, it's kind of like an interest rate. You can think of it as a CD. Currently, the set of values you can get for locking it up range from 5% if there's a 3-month lock, up to 15% a year for a 3-year lock. But you can think of these locking as it's like staking, except you don't have any other accountability at that point. It's simply a way to get used to the process of holding your value long term, being rewarded for it, being happy with that. But then you can add the staking properties on top of that later, and it's no opportunity cost since you've already chosen to lock it up. Okay, so some more on the tokenomics. So the first price was $1 for the first 1,000 Endow. It ticks up a little bit every 1,000, as I said. It's the market price now is $16. Market cap about 80 million. There's been about 22 million purchased. The average staking reward that people are earning is about 10%, a little over 10%. And what's really interesting about this is we've added all these incentives in, and sure enough, incentives work. Almost all the Endow is held in wallet. While there are active exchanges for Endow, most people choose to hold it because that's to their best benefit. Some of the use cases for Endow include institutional retail values, long-term value storage. Often it's recommended people consider this to be a portion of their portfolio they intend to hold a long time. And as new use cases grow and new ways to use Endow to earn additional value, you have that benefit. Staking income and inflation protection, diversification, risk mitigation, DeFi apps, escrow and collateral. And hopefully over the long run, we find the central banks want to use this as a good reserve currency. Really, it's been designed to be an ideal form of value for reserve currencies. And as the long-term future, as I said, it's about accountability. So if you think of any decentralized system or even semi-centralized one in the digital world, you're going to have participants. They're going to be taking part, and you can't always just do things completely trustless. You want people to be participating and have good faith behavior in that system, and you want them to have a stake in that game. You want skin in that game. You want accountability. You want them to have aligned interests with everybody else that's participating. That's the long-term goal for Endow. So let's compare it with Bitcoin first and other unstabilized cryptos. Generally, we see a lot more volatility. Now, the hope always, of course, I love Bitcoin, but the hope of it had always been as Bitcoin gets larger, it'll be more stable. Well, it doesn't feel so stable today. And that's because it doesn't have the benefits of the adaptiveness of monetary policy. A buoyant coin like Endow does. And to recap real quick, what those kind of monetary policies are. It's things like the ability to have new coins released into the environment as the price ticks up, so that it doesn't spike up too rapidly, a floor price that that can be a buyer of last resort in the event of a market crisis, and then other parts of the monetary policy, such as we call it the SIB, the stabilization incentive burn, that gradually reduces the supply when there is a down market, so that that as supply dries up, you start to see the price rise as a result of that. Other comparisons with Bitcoin. There's not a reserve, obviously, with Bitcoin. We have a much more well-defined governance structure for Ndau. We feel that controlling your value cryptographically is great, but obviously people run into problems. We think identity needs to play a role in that too. Let's compare it with Ampleforth is another one we often get compared with. Ampleforth is a little closer to Ndau than Bitcoin in that they've tried to also stabilize by having monetary policy. While there's a few similarities there, they don't really have the same sense of interest-bearing types of locking for staking. They don't have a real-world endowment that can back the value. I think one of the most important differences, though, they made is they said, well, hey, we need a way to reduce the supply in the event that the price has gone down. And so their approach to that is, well, if you've got, say, 1,000 Ample in your wallet and they need to reduce the supply, they just take it out of your wallet. They just reduce it. They rebase it. Now that we think this is a fundamental problem, we looked at that early on and said, no, it has to be only for a specified action that you should see any reduction. So you don't see that happen in Endow. If you were expecting to have a certain amount in your wallet, that amount should still be there. It shouldn't just decrease randomly on you and out of your control. We have mechanisms for decentralized governance. We're based on the Cosmos and Tendermint blockchain, and also there's been people wrapping Ndau so that it can be put on other blockchains as well. We're definitely big believers in the multi-blockchain type of future. So putting all those all together, the adaptability, dependability, the governance. Having a new category for long-term store of value is key for having a better staking token for accountability. And the places, if you want to find out more, Endow.io is the main site for the protocol and the token. The developers of it is a company called Onero. So they're happy to continue developing and help people who want to build on top of Endow. And then we have the Endow governance structure, which is called the Blockchain Policy Council, of which I'm a member. Our governance model is interesting, by the way. We've really taken a hard look at how do you do decentralized governance properly. And our Blockchain Policy Council gets elected by all the holders, but it serves a function of evaluating, does a proposal that can bubble up from anywhere, does it match the fundamental principles that Endow it is built around, and therefore meeting the expectations and the parameters of what it's everybody who participates in is expecting, and then we pass. If it passes that test, then it goes back out for a referendum to see if holders approve of it or not. And so we gradually build up new policies that way. Are there any questions anybody has?
Any questions, let us know now or catch up with Ken later on.
Hey Ken, I know that you're on 2 small exchanges now, and I've heard that you're getting ready to go on some much bigger exchanges as you're picking up traction. Can you speak to just where the project is and kind of what the latest developments are and the plans for the future?
Sure. So we've been on the Bitmart exchange now for about 1.5 years. We want to be on ones that have higher liquidity. So those exchanges are scheduled next. There's much more active market making taking place now. There's 2 wallets on the iOS and Android platform that have they've been working great since we first got on the exchange. Oh, am I still on?
Yep, you're on.
Okay, it's got a message that goes off. So some of the next things we're doing are building for more use cases. I'm personally involved in a few different projects that want to use Endow for the accountability purpose. So things like epistemology, one project where they want to have journalists have to be accountable to what they write. So Endow becomes a way of them putting their own skin in the game behind what they write. We have people doing some DeFi projects. We have some people who want to use Endow as a new model of governance for their project as well. So we're trying to grow the different types of people that want to use Endow for their purposes or for collateral for various things. That's
it is
that's
open,
the
it is open
direction.
source, right? It is open
Yeah,
source.
and it's open source.
Great, wonderful. Any other questions to come through? Thank you, Rob, for that. Really appreciate you jumping in. With that, we'll catch up with Ken later. Ken, thank you so much for your time today. That was great.
Thank you.